I'm David Pardo. I run the OU's Torah initiatives, and I am on a quest for the perfect Seder. Join me, and we're going to find out how to master the Maggid with the Maggid of the Masters. Rabbi Moshe Hauer is the Executive Vice President of the Orthodox Union. Prior to that, he was the Rav of Beth Jacob Sha'arei Tzion in Baltimore for over 26 years. He came to a position of leadership in the OU in the storm of a global pandemic, and has since demonstrated wise and visionary leadership on the national stage. I'm excited to see what he has to say about his Pesach Seder. Could you tell us what the Hauer Seder table looks like? What do you do? What are you doing now in the week in advance of Pesach to prepare for your Seder?
What am I doing now to prepare for the Seder? In the formal sense, personally, I'm not doing that much to prepare for the Seder, and it's not necessarily perfectly, illustrative. I've had the privilege to teach Torah and to teach about the Seder and teach about Haggadah and to write about the Haggadah for many, many years. So the material is there. But the idea here is the following. The Seder has to be engaging. And the Gadata Levincha, what the Torah tells us that you teach the child according to who they are, is really a fulfillment of the notion that a person learns Torah where their heart desires, the way their heart desires. And the Seder has to be not a presentation, but it has to be completely and totally interactive. And that means that you're responding to the questions that are on people's minds as they raise them, and trying to move forward the discussion that way. We prepare for that by a lifetime of Jewish learning. Sometimes, yes, it's good to come armed with some specific ideas, questions which will emerge and be up there on people's minds, but you need to a great degree to be able to be spontaneous. The Seder can't be canned. And if can I share a tip which helps maintain that? Many times when you have children at a Seder and they come armed with Divrei Torah, with thoughts and ideas, sometimes like parents are a little worried. They got like 432 Divrei Torah, and that's just on Urchatz. And they say, how are we going to handle this? How's the Seder not going to get out of control? So there's a very valuable method. I think it's great, and people sometimes joke it's supposed to be Gadata Levincha, not V'Gadata Le'avicha. But of course, it's a great way for children to be engaged. We do all kinds of stuff for children to be engaged, and when they're excited to speak, that keeps them up, that keeps them engaged and involved. But here's the trick. A child can say a Dvar Torah, can share a thought that they brought with them. Use it every time as a step to the next piece of the discussion. Meaning, if they just share with you a thought, and you take it and you say, okay, on to the next one, then you're allowing the Seder to become canned, to become just sort of like a bunch of statements. But if when they share with you a thought, you say, well, 1 second, wow, that's so interesting. And they have to take it to the next step. You'll ask them something about what they said. You'll point out a ramification of what they said. So it's not a hit and run that they shared the Dvar Torah, but the Dvar Torah is a springboard to the next step of discussion. I have found that it escapes a lot of the pitfall. First of all, of course, it's not going to be an idea that they're just going to be rattling off to you 432 thoughts. It's just impossible to do that. And they'll choose the next thought that they'll share as something which is going to be a good, not just, a hit and run, but a conversation starter where it's going to take it to the next step. So preparation is to be knowledgeable as best we can. Preparation, yeah, of course, we should read and learn before so that we have, some material that, so to speak, to some degree, ready to go in taking the conversation in a certain direction. But the greatest Seder preparation in terms of this is to get into the mindset when you're going to sit down there, that this is going to be an engaged, interactive conversation of she'ela, tshuva, of questions and answers, and to have that kind of a focused and at the same time flexible and relaxed posture to the Seder.
That's amazing. That's an amazing tip. Also, because it's not a tip. That's just that is the proper.
The way it's a path. Yeah. I agree.
do you wait till the kids, till you go around, do you wait till a kid kind of jumps up, or do you go in a circle, people take turns reading?
I'll just tell you something that I try to do. I want my Seder, as much as possible, to look in many ways like my father's Seder. Can I tell you a beautiful little story? It's a beautiful story. So I follow my father's Nusach. I was not at my father's Seder pretty much, my father's for 25 years. One exception was my parents moved to Eretz Yisrael at the same time that I became a congregational rabbi. I couldn't go there, and they weren't going to come to America for Yom Tov. They waited long enough to be in Eretz Yisrael for Yom Tov. And my father conducted, until his last year, the Seder around his table. One year, our shul, after I was in the shul 18 years, they were amazingly wonderful, and they sent us so I could have Pesach with my parents. They sent us to Eretz Yisrael. I could have Pesach at my father's Seder table. But every year on Erev Pesach, I would tell my father that I'm not at his table, but there's an embassy of his table. In other words, I'm doing it the way he did it, with his nusach, the way he said it, the way he chanted it, and we do things the same way. I eat the same way more that he ate more. Everybody has lettuce. Like what do you do? Everything I try to do as much as possible the way my father, Zichrono Livracha, did it. So listen to something. My son was learning in a yeshiva, and he had a chavrusa whose name was Hauer. His name was Hauer. His chavrusa's name was Hauer. His chavrusa was his third cousin, my second cousin's child. They were learning together, and this was a second cousin who I met for the first time when I was already, I think, graduating high school. Our families, because of the disruption, not just of the Second World War, but even of the First World War, were separated. And they were chavrusas, and they became friendly. And before Pesach, the two of them sat and they said, "Hey, by the way, what's the tune? What's the nusach that you use?" And they shared the tune of what they said for the Haggadah, and they said it the same way. In other words, they had shared third cousins. What that means? Great grandfathers or great grandfathers.
Great.
And each one had faithfully conveyed and continued it, so that now these third cousins who had never met each other before were sharing the same way of saying the Haggadah. And that's, of course, part of the beauty of the Seder. It's part of the incredible beauty of the Seder. The hemshech, the continuity, leman tiskor, so you remember. The Seder is about creating memories in so many ways. It's about creating traditions. It's about creating a sense of what a house is like and a family is like. And that's just like the richest part of it all. You asked if we go around the table? Yeah, so my father used to say the whole Haggadah, and we would say it along, huh?
In a tune, in a specific tune.
In a specific tune. Oh, he stopped all the time. He stopped all the time for us to say things, for us to ask things, for him to say things. But there was a man Omar Haggadata, the Gemara says. The Gemara implies there was one person who said the Haggadah for everybody. It's perfectly legitimate to go around the table, but that was my father's custom, and that's the custom which we do as well. And but everybody says along. It's very, the nusach and the niggin is very conducive to people joining and saying along. It's not just read; it's really all with a tune. We invite people to chime in. Sorry?
Can we hear the tune?
Can you hear the tune?
I'm allowed to ask questions, right?
It's we'll see.
Okay.
But we encourage people, like Chazal taught us. The Gemara says that you would give out to children. They would give out to children kloyos ve'egozim, which is basically like sweets or treats or something like that. When did they give it? The Gemara is not perfectly clear when they gave it. It sounds like they gave it out on Erev Yom Tov, and maybe they were hyper, they couldn't go to sleep, or whatever it is. But what we've done is we do it during the Seder, and I'll share with you phase one, and then I'll share with you the true genius here, which is my wife's genius. What that has added incredibly to our Seder and to the family members for our children, memories for our children, you know, to this day. So we reward people. We have, Baruch Hashem, we had our children around the table. We had many guests, and we wanted to encourage people to speak. And so I always had in front of me a basket of treats. Sometimes they were chocolate lentils, which you're allowed to have, even though lentils are kidneys, but chocolate lentils are not kidneys, or some other kind of a candy, something which, you know, there are halachas, so you're allowed to eat it during Maggid, but people could certainly store it up. Sometimes they got, so to speak, tickets towards a prize, but people would say something, and I would send something to them, and of course it was a lot of fun. It was not just, okay, you did something, you get a reward, right? Somebody would somebody would say, could you please pass the salt water? Shkoyach, here you get a ticket, but just like piling it on and using it as a method of engagement. The addition, may I show you Exhibit A, Rabbi Pardo?
Please.
I don't know if you can see this, but this is a basket of what you can get in your neighborhood dollar store or pharmacy of Easter eggs. Excuse me.
I didn't want to
I hope that's okay. I hope that's okay, right? But it's a seasonal item. It's available, and they open up. They open up. So my wife came up with this plan years ago, where every year of Pesach, she's a busy person, busy preparing for a Seder, busy preparing for a 3-day yontiv. She disappears for a couple of hours, and she's busy putting a letter, a piece of paper with a letter on it, the letter E, with a little number 3 in the corner, for example, goes in this egg, and it all comes together into this basket. And during the Seder, instead of just giving out candies, sometimes a person asks a question, I give them an egg, and another egg, and another egg. The idea is that when you have all the eggs, you can piece together a message. So each egg has a letter with a little number in the corner. It looks like a Scrabble letter, but it's not a point. And right, 3 is the third word in the sequence. So you get all these letters, and eventually, now they don't usually get all the eggs by the end of the Seder. They don't get them all, but they have to piece it together. And by the time they get up to Shulchan Aruch, by the time you get up to the meal, they have enough to start piecing something together. And it's very motivating. It's very, very motivating. And it doesn't matter how old you are, by the way, and how serious you are, and how much, by the way, you're laughing at this. You say, my parents are doing this thing. It's unbelievable. It's beautiful. And by the time they have it, they piece together, and they have a statement, they have a sentence, and it says something. Now, what does it say?
What does it say?
It's always a family surprise. Something, a family treat. Maybe it's going to be something that we're going to do on Chol Hamoed. Maybe it's going to be something that we're going to be doing in the summertime. My parents, for example, once they had, many years ago, they had their 50th wedding anniversary, and they lived in Eretz Yisrael, and they brought everybody together for Achnas Sefer Torah. So that Pesach previous, the Seder surprise was that we're going to be going to Eretz Yisrael in the summer. But we didn't just tell it to them, and we didn't want to tell them. We don't believe in surprises like a last-minute surprise. We wanted to have anticipation. So 3 months before, they had this Seder thing, and it spelled out with a hangman chart. I remember what it was, what it is. Sometimes we just get them like a family afikoman present. Everybody, one year we got everybody one of those firm pillows. What are they called? The memory foam pillow. We covered Pesach for Heseba. We got everybody in the family. We got them one. So what happened? The Seder surprise said, "Go look." I'm making this up. Go look in the front closet. And he went to the front closet, and there was a note in the front closet which said, secrets are better found in the refrigerator downstairs. And they went to the refrigerator downstairs, and then there was another note telling them to a third place. And they're running around and excited, and then eventually they land in some place where they find a bunch of these pillows. And so it's beautiful because during the Seder, they're completely engaged in just trying to get another egg. And it doesn't distract. The conversation is engaging, and this is that little extra motivation to keep them awake, to engage them. And then, after the Maggid, when people are a little spent, and tired, then a new realm of excitement starts. And that is, okay, now we got to piece this together and find it. And it happens while the meal is going on and while it's doing it. And then the search, it's just the memories which it builds, incomparable. Stroke of genius.
Do you have your message ready for this year?
I tell you the truth. My wife is certainly planning it. There's
going to be a surprise to you too?
No, many times it's a bit of a surprise to me. Sometimes it's not, but it's many times again we coordinate. But it's my wife's specialty, and she does it like really, really great. It's wonderful. Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem.
Don't be scared. And the Pesach is, again, it's the cornerstone. It's the cornerstone of our memory, of our experience, of our own personal story, our own identity. And that cornerstone has to be poured with joy. It has to be poured with joy. There are plenty of tears in it, but the tears shouldn't be of the difficult variety. Pesach can be over-experienced in a certain sense, in the sense of the preparation. We can make it more difficult than it needs to be. The simcha, the joy that it is possible to generate in a house around Pesach preparation is that's really the magic of the whole thing. It's the magic of the whole thing. To have music playing, to have tasks, accomplished together as a team. Yes, it's wishful to say it'll just happen without any stress. But we, as fathers and mothers, as participants in the Seder, have to have a singular goal that we're going to enjoy this, that this is going to be something which is going to be a source of positive memory and positive experience. And boy, can it be that way. It really, really can. And the value of that is so immense. It's beyond the words. And this is Hashem. Everyone's going to get there. We'll all get there to Pesach. And this year we have a gift, Erev Pesach, that comes out on Shabbos. We have I personally have creates all these complicated halachas and how we're going to manage the crumbs. We can manage it. The gift is that you get to catch your breath on Erev Pesach. You get to catch your breath. You can. First of all, you don't have to go into Erev Pesach and the Seder night exhausted, because you can have you can rest on Shabbos afternoon. You can learn Torah on Shabbos afternoon in preparation. You could learn through the bringing of the Korban Pesach during the time when it would be brought, as it would be. It's such a without having to run around. The running around is Friday, and then, like as you would imagine, you'd want to spend Erev Pesach. We get to, so enjoy the gift, and let it lower the temperature for that night, for that very, very special night.
A beautiful bracha. Thank you, Rabbi Hauer. You should have a get lichtig, freilich, kusher, Pesach.
Thank you. You too.